The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagwin, says the New Patriotic Party NPP caucus and the independent MP for Fomena constituency constitutes the majority in Parliament. This decision, according to the Speaker, is based on a formal letter by Andrew Sisiama Mwako notifying him, the Speaker, of his intention to do business with the NPP in Parliament. Before the Speaker made this declaration, the NDC caucus leader Haruna Idrisu insisted there is no clear majority in the House. Let's hear from both the NPP and the NDC side of the House.
As Parliament is concerned, produce an inevitable outcome of no majority in Parliament. 137 NPP, 137 NDC. Understandably, I'm informed that the distinguished member for Fomena has decided to do business with the NPP. Doing business, in my view, does not represent joining a political party, and I say so within the context of Article 97 and guided by that authoritative statement of Cross on rules on interpretation when he says the expresso unus rule. Independent is independent and political party is political party. But Mr. Speaker, whilst congratulating you, the Honorable Osei Mensah in the 7th Parliament had it easy because he had comfort of numbers. This time he does not. And he cannot procure nor add to it other than a cooperation and support from the member for Fomena, nothing more. So, Mr. Speaker, what he must understand, this site, however we are referred to, you will need us going forward. I didn't even reference portions of the Constitution, but any of you can read Article 11, 268, 174. It requires 2/3 majority. You don't have that. You will need us. Going forward. That is why you must tolerate and respect us no matter what. Going forward, the Constitution, I can mention 10 more. Mr. Speaker, I conclude on that note. I have said this because I know my colleague is a very experienced lawmaker, that this parliament, cooperation and consensus is compelling and an imperative. Did you want the obvious? Mr. Speaker, on matters relating to whoever invited the military to the chamber and onto the floor, going forward, we will demand an inquiry to it in order that it never ever happens, as you have assured. Because it's only democracies that have parliaments, and we have a duty jealously to protect our democracy and to grow our democracy. Parliament remains a forum, as I have repeatedly said, where right and wrong is debated. Mr. Speaker, the Ghanaian people voted in December that when we debate right and wrong, let right prevail and not partisanship. And that they want to see an end to the divisiveness in our country. They want to see an end to the polarization in our country. They want to see an end to the excessive partisanship of our country. And that we hold strong together our democratic values and ethos. Mr. Speaker, I can only wish you well, wish you every success, trust that you will moderate debate, impartial and neutral as you indicated, rule on matters of procedure. Mr. Speaker, I cannot conclude without saying that this House, and probably I'm sure my colleague will touch it, we will have to take a rapid action on our rules of procedure and standing orders.
Of any leader in this House who has reached out to the other side, as I have done. My colleague, the Honorable Cletus Abuka is here. Mr. Speaker, you yourself, you are here. I will testify that in the history of this Parliament, if we open our eyes wide, we know the consultation. My colleague, the minority leader, the former minority leader, the Honorable Haruna Idrissa, the Honorable Haruna Idrissa would attest to that fact. And that is notwithstanding whatever people say outside. The Speaker, the caucus that I lead, and indeed the leader for the member for Fomena is not oblivious of the constitutional provision relating to his doing business with the MPP caucus. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, he was very careful in his choice of words. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't amount to crossing carpet, what he has done, but doing business with the MPP caucus, understandably gave the MPP caucus one more additional seat in the conduct of business in this House. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, and therefore, we would, without any equivocation, constitute the majority caucus in this House. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the minority leader on this issue about the approval of the new standing orders. Mr. Speaker, I was clear in my mind what we ought to do. And indeed, all the processes that we have adopted in approving standing orders in this House, beginning in 1983, never came to be subjected to Article 11, sub 7 of the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, it was for a good reason. It was for a good reason. It's the reason why all the standing orders were approved by motion in plenary. Mr. Speaker, if we have to go that route and apply ourselves to that vehicle, we may have problems. And the reason is this. That route quoted by my colleague would suggest to us that there must be a parent act from which would ensue regulations, instruments, and orders. The Speaker, that parent act of 1965 has no provision for the introduction of standing orders. It does not mean that if you have to go that route, Mr. Speaker, we may have to go and amend that parent act. And I thought that if we applied ourselves to the process that we had done, that would even shorten the route for us. Mr. Speaker, I believe if we apply ourselves to that route, within 2 weeks maximum, you should be able to adopt these new standing orders. And if members insist that we should go that route of Article 11.7, the Speaker will run into turbulence. And that is why I have always advised that we need really to apply ourselves to a motion so that we circumvent the process as has always been done, and then we move forward to adopt the new standing orders, which in my view, the Speaker, would reposition Parliament in the conduct of business in this House.
So that's how the argument on both sides of the House went earlier today. Well, the Speaker has made a declaration on the matter. Listen.
Cooperate and collaborate with the MPP caucus in the 8th Parliament. Dated this 13th day of January. Dated this 13th day of January 2021. Yours faithfully. Signed, Honorable Andrew Esiama Amwako, MP, Fomena constituency. And copy to the leader of the MPP caucus. Honorable members, with this official declaration to the House will accord him the space to do as he has stated. Whatever he said outside was of no effect so far as the business of the House is concerned. And therefore, he had to do it officially for it to be read and captured in the Hansard. And so what we have now, you have the New Patriotic Party wing or caucus in Parliament, together with the independent member of Parliament from Fomena. And they now constitute the majority group.
I want to take you to Parliament Live right now. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is our man on the ground. He's joining me right now. Joseph, very interesting times in Parliament, I should say. So now help us. Let's break this majority dynamic down. Okay. What really did the Speaker mean when he said that the NPP has the majority in the group? It means that it comes with the Fomena MP. Help us understand how this works.
So again, he was cautious about using the word caucus.
Okay.
So his point is that with Fomena MP and Ramakwesiama in the NDC as a caucus, that amounts to a majority group, which would mean that the NDC still holds onto it 137. So the NDC caucus has 137. The NPP caucus has 137. The NPP caucus plus Fomena then constitutes a majority group in the House going forward. And the interpretation some analysts in Parliament are putting to it is that, yes, it would allow the NPP plus Fomena to have a majority leader, but the Speaker was very categorical about drawing the distinction and making the point that the NPP caucus having 137 plus the Fomena MP and Ramakwesiama then constitute a majority group in Parliament going forward. If you listen to the Speaker in the speech that he delivered, which lasted for several minutes, almost an hour, when he repeatedly wanted to refer to the NDC side and the NPP side, he repeatedly sought to make the point or desisted from using the wording majority or minority, and this was before the Fomena MP's letter was read. On two different occasions, when he made references to the two sides, he talked about how this was the NDC side, this was the MPP side, this was the side in support of government, this is the opposition side. But he deliberately, repeatedly did not use majority or minority, and then even after when he was calling both leaders, he kept referring to them as the MP for Swame and the MP for Tamale South. Until eventually then he went on to read the letter from the former MP and then made the point that the NPP plus Formina then constitutes a majority group in Parliament going forward.
Well, Joseph, I guess that some people may see this as stating the obvious, and because we knew that the Formina MP had indicated that it would be working with the NPP. But what really makes a difference right now, based on what we knew previously and what declaration the Speaker has made today?
For the NPP side, the interpretation they're putting on this is that now they have the right to call the leader of the NPP caucus plus the independent MP the majority leader. Although, clearly, on the NDC side, they are refusing the title minority leader for the leader of that group, Osei Mensah-Bonsu. But again, what we've seen is a deliberate effort on the part of the Speaker to then desist from using that terminology in terms of majority and minority leader. But the interpretation the NPP is putting on the Speaker's declaration is that this then gives them the opportunity to call their leader, Osei Mensah-Bonsu, the majority leader. Although the NDC side is insisting that their leader cannot be referred to as minority leader. Very
interesting times indeed. So does it mean that it has to be described? Okay, going forward, how do we describe this, the leadership? Do we describe them as the majority caucus in Parliament and move on? And even so, would you say majority caucus or minority caucus? I mean, I don't know. Is there a consensus on the floor?
Maybe at an appropriate time, when the Speaker has his comment and make reference to how they should call themselves, it may be a basis to then follow the Speaker's lead in terms of how he describes both sides. But clearly now the indication is that the NPP plus the Formina is the majority. And mind you, he was very cautious about using the word caucus. What he did was to use leader to describe NPP plus Formina, and he again desisted from using minority leader to describe even the leader on the other side, or majority leader to describe Osei Mensah-Bonsu. So then I'm tempted to think that with both sides still interpreting even what the Speaker said differently, we can all just wait and hear how the Speaker would refer to those two individuals, particularly the leaders on both sides, going forward, and whether he will be minded to use leader in describing the majority leader, the minority leader. Because, mind you, when you glance through the standing orders of Parliament, there isn't a specific explanation as to what majority caucus is and minority caucus is. The only explanation we have in the standing orders that references majority and minority has to do with the a section in Order 5 of the standing order that gives an explanation of what various terminologies in the standing orders are. So it explains bills, it explains executive, it explains legislature, and then there it explains majority leader, be the leader of the group or the party with the higher numbers or parties with the higher numbers, and then explains minority leader to be the leader of the group with the lower numbers, and also serving as the opposition.
So Joseph, pardon me for jumping in here. What it means is that if the Speaker rises today without necessarily addressing any of the sides as majority or minority, what do we stick with?
We are sticking with the fact that the MPP is the majority group. The Speaker hasn't told us what the NDC side should call itself. Okay. The Speaker hasn't told us about the majority leader in the House. He hasn't told us about a minority leader in the House. We'll see. Lead on that.
We'll see how it goes. But also something that takes my curiosity, Joseph, is the Asin North MP. There was a whole issue with that one, the court's ruling on that. But it looks as if we're sticking to the 137 for both sides. The NDC if I should single NDC out because the MP in question is from that side, is there anything happening around this over there in Parliament?
The Assistant MP is actually in the House. He's been participating in proceedings all morning. The controversy around him came up again. After the long talk, there was the correction of the votes and proceedings, which is the official record of what transpired on the 7th of January. And there was a bit of controversy with whether the injunction that came was a writ or it was an order. And there was an attempt by MP for South Dai, Roxin Mafiamoko, to correct what the table office had captured as record of proceedings in the House, and indicating that he would want it corrected so that then whether it was an interim or an interlocutory injunction, it clearly reflects. When he sought to correct that, the response of the Speaker was that he wasn't there when it all unfolded. So the table office should take notice and correct the suggestions as has been made by the NDC. But he's being counted as an MP in the House. In this case, the Speaker's directive is based on him being inclusive as far as the NDC side is concerned.
I see. Joseph, I guess I will come back to you, but right now we know that the House is currently discussing the upsurge of COVID-19 cases. We'll be going live to the chamber, but Joseph, your quick thoughts or your quick wrap of what they have said so far.
A number of things. Alban Bagbin urged MPs to behave like honorables, even as they undertake the activities. He said he was grateful for all the support that he had enjoyed. He urged MPs to desist from the acts that unfolded on the dawn of 7th January that led to his election. He condemned the chaos and said that MPs should avoid that there is never a repeat of that. He said that he was grateful for the bipartisan approval and went on to state, contrary to the claim of Authority Mentabuntu, that he was elected by 138 votes and 136 for the person who contested him. He then went on to say that as Speaker, he will not yield to pressure to rubber stamp requests from the executive, and he will not yield to pressure to obstruct the business of government either, and that Ghanaians have given both sides equal strength in the House, and he wants the business of the House to reflect that. To touch briefly on what the leaders on both sides said when they responded to the Speaker's long speech, Harry Idrisu said that under every circumstance, the NDP side would need them to get approvals in the House. And again, he went on to condemn the military invasion and said, because they would demand for an official inquiry. Clement Sabonsu also said that he condemned the violence, the chaos of the dawn of 7th January, and said those acts were reprehensible and should not be repeated going forward.
Joseph, thank you very much.